Most entrepreneurs think that if they want to double their profit, they have to double their customers. And that's actually the slowest, hardest, and most expensive way to do it. So, in this video, I'm going to walk you through how to double your profit without adding any more customers and why it's such a better, simpler, faster system than what most people do. So, before we get into that, my name is Jeremy Reeves. If you don't know me, I am the owner of Scale Advisors. We help D2C companies scale faster, more profitably, with better cash flow and less stress. And I'm also the author of the number one best-selling book, The Scalable Profit Model. I've done about $200 million or so in revenue generated. So, been around the block a long time. The vast majority of that was in D2C companies. So, let's dive in. What I want to talk about today is lifetime value. All right, so that's pretty much the answer to this, but a lot of people think about it wrong. They're not calculating correctly. They're not really they don't really understand why it's so important. All right. And they've probably heard it, right? Maybe that's you. Maybe you've heard about lifetime value. You've wanted to do it, but it's just kind of one of those things that you're like, put it to the back burner. Maybe we'll get to it later at some other point because we have marketing to think about. Right. So I want to walk you through what it is, why people measure it wrong, why it's so important, and hopefully by the end of this video show you convince you that it is a massive, massive, massively underutilized lever and can make you so much more profit so much faster than so many other methods, right? So let's start at the beginning. How do you measure lifetime value? What is lifetime value? All right. And so the classic definition of lifetime value is just simply like how much revenue you generate over the lifetime of a customer, and that's how most people think about it. The problem with that, there are a couple problems with that. Three main ones. Number one is there's no time frame. All right. So if you just say our lifetime value is whatever $1,000 for your customers, what's lifetime? Is that 6 months? Is that 3 years? Is that 30 years? Right? Because if you make $1,000 a customer and you make it 6 months versus 3 years versus 10 years or 30 years, very, very, very different businesses, right? So you have to know what your time frame is. You have to do it based on a time frame that makes sense for you. Typically, it's going to involve how much cash you can float in your business. For me, the general rule of thumb for me, and of course this varies based on business. It's typically going to be lower the smaller your business, and then as you get bigger, as you get up into the multiple eight figures, that sort of thing, typically the time frame is going to go longer and longer and longer. But typically, just as a general rule of thumb, my main lifetime value measure that I track for long-term decisions is 1 year. All right. And then anything after a year, great, it's a bonus. And then it'll just keep padding the P&L as we generate more volume over time and that sort of thing. But I look at it as a bonus, right? And then of course, again, if you're bigger, that may be a little bit longer. If you're smaller, you may only have to look at a 6 month time frame, right? It depends on your goals and what you're trying to do. The second thing is that people don't apply contribution margin adjustments to lifetime value. So if they say that same $1,000 lifetime value is gross revenue, well, if your contribution margin is 50%, that means you only have $500 of actual usable cash profit in your business. All right, because you can't spend your variable costs because they come out if you sell $1,000 worth of product and you have a 50% contribution margin, then you can only spend that $500. Okay, so it's really, 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 really important. Anytime if you have a data dashboard, if you're looking at your lifetime value, you can't just throw it into ChatGPT and get total customers divided by total revenue. That is the worst way to do lifetime value, and it's probably the most common way. And again, it's fine for just a base number, but when you're actually making decisions, you need to do this properly. It has to be by a time frame. It has to be adjusted for contribution margins, so you actually know what you keep. And then the third thing is cohorts. Okay, so if you're looking at let's just say you're looking at 6 month lifetime value. What you want to do is pick a cohort. So people who, let's just say it's July, and you want to look at everyone that started in January 1st through the end of June would be 6 months. How much did they generate in 6 months? You don't do like previous 6 months because then you're going to get people that just came in yesterday. Well, you can't really factor in their lifetime value if they just came in yesterday. All right. So you have to, If you're doing a year, right, your starting point has to be more than a year away. If you're doing 6 months, your starting point has to be more than 6 months away. So you can have everyone in that cohort has run the full time frame. All right. So that's super, super, super important. Make sure if you have a data dashboard that they're using cohorts and that's how they're doing them. All right. So now let's get into what lifetime value actually is. All right. So as I said, it's CMLTV. All right. So contribution margin adjusted lifetime value. And if you're not familiar with contribution margin, it's basically just like your revenue minus all your variable costs. And then as we apply that to lifetime value, it's pretty much revenue minus all your variable costs or contribution margin over a defined window, which is your time frame for specific cohort, which is like a specific group of people so that you can track and get accurate numbers. All right. You can also then break this down more. So it doesn't have to be, start by doing it just overall company, but as if you've watched any of my videos, you know that I'm a big fan of granularity. I like to see things from both a high level view, but then also a granular view. So even contribution margin, right? So if you're doing contribution margin, do it per product on a unit economics scale, but then also do it for the company in general. It's good that you can make different decisions based on those different things. So same thing with lifetime value. It's good to have an overall lifetime value for the company. It's also good to have an overall lifetime value for each individual product. And then from there, then you can break it down, and you can break it down by traffic channel. So you're going to have a different lifetime value in Facebook versus YouTube versus Google versus Bing versus direct mail versus referrals, right? They're all going to have different lifetime values because you're attracting different types of people in each of those channels. All right. So super, super, super important. You can also break it down by ad, right? Or ad group or campaign, right? There's various ways to break this up. You could even do it by what problem they have, or you can do it by market level awareness, right? Or market sophistication levels, or, there's all sorts of different ways that you can break this up, but figure it out and break it up in whatever makes sense for your business that you can actually make data-driven decisions on. That's the important thing here, is do it for your business. Everyone's is a little bit different, and you just have to understand the fundamentals, which I'm walking you through here, and then apply that to your business to see how you want to break it up and how granular you want it and in what ways. You can also do it by product. You could do it where if they took an upsell or they took an order bump, or if they did a bundle, what's their lifetime value, right? You're just trying to get as granular as you can. You can even do it by behavior, right? So maybe people who, I don't know, watched a certain video in your Facebook thing before they bought, they have a higher lifetime value because they were pre-indoctrinated and they already had more trust. And that's why the ads, a lot of people miss lifetime value by ads, or by like ad type or campaign, whatever. But it's really important, because if you have, let's just say you have one funnel that's completely cold, they've never heard about you before, and bam, it's a straight sale to your product. And then you have another campaign where you're trying an indoctrination sequence and you're giving them content and you're overcoming objections and you're explaining, you're basically changing their belief system for around what it is that you sell, and then slowly leading them to your product. And they get maybe 2 or 3 videos and then a pitch for your product. Well, what do you think is going to happen? They're going to have higher average order values. They're going to have higher lifetime value, all right? Because they already had more trust and authority and credibility and all the things that makes people convert higher and spend more. Your acquisition economics over here are going to be better, but it's going to cost more. So you have to, the allowable, the customer acquisition cost, the CAC, might be lower on this one and might be higher here, but you're generating a higher AOV and a higher LTV over here versus lower AOV and LTV over here. So you have to look at this again. As I always say, you have to see things as a holistic unit. You cannot isolate variables and make decisions based on them, because you're going to make the wrong decisions. That's why it's so important to become a data-driven company, because you just simply are not going to, let me move this over here. There we go. You just simply are not going to be able to make good decisions if you are not, right? Now, let's get into the math a little bit, right? So I always like to get in the math, right? So let's start as a baseline. We're going to do a business that's 6,000 customers, right? The $60 CAC, $100 average order value, $40 overhead per customer, and a 50% contribution margin. right? And then a $250 1 year lifetime value. All right. If you increase so I always talk about how the different profit levers that I talk about in all my videos, which is contribution margin, acquisition economics, lifetime value, operational efficiency, and capital return velocity. One of the things that you'll notice as you go through some of my content is that I always talk about leverage. All right. So contribution margin is one where, in general, for every 1% increase in contribution margin or improvement in contribution margin that you get, you typically see a 4 to 6% increase in profit. All right, so you increase or improve contribution margin 1%, you get a 4 to 6% increase in profit. All right, acquisition economics are roughly within that range, maybe 3 to 5, something like that. Lifetime value is a little bit lower than other ones. It's generally in the range of like 2 or 3 to 1, right? So which means that basically you add $1 in lifetime value, you're going to add $3 in profit. However, and this is a really important point for people to understand, the opportunity in lifetime value is so much higher. So even though the leverage is a little bit smaller, in this case, it's about a 3 to 1, right? The opportunity is so much bigger because most people's lifetime value is terrible because they don't focus on lifetime value. They focus on getting the customer, but not ascending the customer. All right. If you focus on that, so what I mean by that is in contribution margin, you might only be able to save, 10, maybe 20%, whereas lifetime value, you might be able to increase that 30%, 50%, 100% without a single drop of sweat. Okay. Depending on how good or bad you're doing it right now. All right. So a little bit less leverage, but way, 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 way more opportunity. All right. So in this example, if we increased the lifetime value by 30%, which is typically not all that hard, you would get your net would go from $150,000 to $285,000, which is a 90% increase in profit from a 30% increase in lifetime value. So literally all you're doing is increasing that lifetime value and you get a 90% increase in profit. Zero more customers, right? No customers. All you're doing is focusing on servicing the customers you have, delivering a better experience, right? Reducing refunds because that's going to help drive more lifetime value. It also helps the contribution margin. Right. So whatever it is, whether that's, there's so many different ways to actually move lifetime value. So actually let's get into that, right? So the first pillar of this, before anything else, if we break down lifetime value into pillars, right? There are three main pillars for increasing lifetime value. The first one is your product, okay? If you do not have an amazing product that delivers on the promise that you gave the customer, your lifetime value is going to suck. Super, super important to understand that, because think about it from a consumer's point of view. They just gave you $1 or $100 or whatever it is, right? They just gave you $100. And the reason they did that is because they believe that you can solve whatever problem they came to fix, whether that's some sort of fun gadget, right? You're still solving a problem of them not having that fun gadget. Whether it's selling clothes, whether it's selling a supplement that that reduces a pain or whatever it is, whether it's selling, I don't know, a baseball bat, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. They're coming to you because they believe they have a problem they want to solve. How big or problem how big or small that problem is varies, obviously, but they came to you with a specific problem. They bought your product in order of solving that problem, and if what your product delivers matches or is even, over delivers compared to your marketing, yay, right? That's a win. Okay. That's why the copy has to match reality. Okay. I'm a huge, before AI and before I went and started a bunch of my own businesses and things like that, I was a direct response copywriter for like a decade and did, I don't even know how many millions, all sorts of different, massive wins across various industries and stuff. And one of the things that I realized when I was doing that is there's a really fine line, because in your copy, you want it to be very aggressive in terms of like really explaining the benefits and the pain points, really diving into them with dimensionalization and making it feel more visceral than it even is right now, and overcoming the objections and talking to them about how their life is going to feel once they use your product, and explaining why your product is unique and showing proof for the product, and yada, 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 yada. Okay. That's really important to have. All right. Super, super important to have all that, because that's going to increase your conversions. I literally just talked about in the last video that I did, which is walking through my scalable offer score, right? Which I talk about in the book, the scalable profit model. It's all in there if you want to walk through that, which you can get at scaleadvisors.com/book. All right. That's all important to have. But you should not be over promising and under delivering. Okay. So you always have to watch that balance. Okay. Promise everything that your product can actually do, but make sure your product can actually do it. Right. And it's not going to be 100% for everyone, right? Everyone has different ways they use it. Everyone maybe misuses it. I know that. I mean, I've been in the supplement industry for a long time. A lot of people take the wrong dose, or they skip days, or whatever, right? There's only so much that you can control. There's a lot of things you can do to help all that, though, right? In your retention campaigns. But the short story is, people will not buy from you again if what you promised them didn't come true. So make sure whatever you're promising them in terms of benefits and outcomes that they're going to receive after using your product is actually true, because you don't want to get into a situation where you get all these customers and then they buy once and then they never buy again because you overpromised them in your sales copy. All right. It's one of those things that a lot of people do, and it comes back to bite them in the ass. And then they say, I don't know why my LTV sucks. And it's like, well, because you overpromised what your product could actually do. All right. So that's why it comes down to, if you want to have aggressive, super hardcore copy, make sure you have an aggressive, super hardcore, amazing product that actually stands up to the claims that you're putting in the copy. That's it. Continually work on that product. It is by far the most important thing that you can do for increasing lifetime value. Now, second pillar of this is making sure that your product stays in their routine. All right. Really, really, really important. This is something that so many people miss. And if you think about it, right, they get your product, and then if you're not telling them how to use it, they're going to guess. And when people guess, they generally get it wrong. So in your emails, you're educating them, you're doing usage reminders, you're showing them how to use your product, you're explaining different ways they can use your product, you're giving them ideas for using it throughout their daily life. All right. So one example of this is like protein, right? Let's just say that you sell like a protein powder, like a plant-based protein powder or something like that. Well, maybe there's studies around protein and why, like you're continually educating them, right? So like maybe there's studies around using plant-based protein, and you find something that whatever, people that add a scoop of plant-based protein to their breakfast can put on more muscle, or can burn more calories in a day, or eat less, or whatever that benefit is. You can give them daily use ideas, right? So tell them where to put it. Tell them to put that next to their coffee pot, to try a scoop in their coffee. Give them recipes that they can use that protein with. All right. This is something that I did when we sold a constipation product. It was like a fiber, right? That dissolved easily in your coffee. It was a pain in the ass to create, but I made it specifically thinking about this. All right. This concept, I wanted a product, because when I launched it, now this is going back, this is like in 2019. So it was a while ago. Market has changed, but it was prebiotics. And at that time, there were no prebiotics that you could just mix. So I worked for months with my manufacturer trying to figure out a way that we could make a product that mixed easily. It mixed fully with no clumping. It didn't taste like anything, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because then I could tell them, all you have to do, just make your coffee, boop, put that in, stir it, you're good to go. That's it. All right. You won't taste it. You're going to go to the bathroom better, which, I mean, it works like crazy. I literally built it for myself. Thankfully, that problem is gone now. But the point is, you're trying to get them to use it in their daily life, right? Get them to integrate it. Get them to integrate it into their lifestyle, because when you do that, when you increase the usage, it makes them come back, right? It's going to increase your retention. All right. And if you have them on a subscription, that means they're actually going to use it. They're going to reorder next month. If you don't have them on subscription, it means they're going to go through the whatever stock they have of your product. Like if you're doing like a 136 bottle or multiple quantities, whatever, the more they use it, the faster they're going to need it again. Okay. So the more they use it, the more money you're going to make and the higher lifetime value is going to go. All right. The concept here is that you're selling the habit, not just the product or not just the bottle or not, not just the product. All right. You're selling the habit. You're not selling the product. All right. This is super important to put in all of your series, like once they come into your business. The third thing is the hybrid, like a hybrid product model, right? So a lot of people get stuck in selling whatever they sell and they don't think about selling other things. But if you break down what can be sold, right? What do people buy? If you break that down, there's physical products, information, services, and software. That's everything, right? So the question to you is, if you only sell physical products right now, what of those other ones can you lump in? Right? Can you add some information that you could sell? A good example that would be a health coaching program that walks them through. It's got like a 12-week program that just walks them through step by step, right? Maybe you could sell that for $1,000 or $2,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is. Okay, and that's information. Software. I mean, I can almost guarantee you that whatever you sell, there's probably some sort of software in your industry. And now with Cloud Code, you can build software very simply. All right. So what sort of software can you do? That'll help increase your retention rates. And if you get someone that's buying $50 a month in whatever product that you sell, again, we'll just go back to supplements, but then you can also get them in another $20 a month subscription. Well, I mean, that's a big increase to your lifetime value. All right. Especially since the software has very little costs once they actually get in there. Next would be services, right? So what services can you add on? Depending on what you sell, there's probably some sort of service in that industry, right? If you're selling pet products, there are services in the pet industry. If you're selling almost anything health related, there are so many different services that you could do for health. If you're selling some sort of financial product, so many services in that. If you're selling, I don't know, if you're selling stuff in the prepping market, right? You could do stuff there. I mean, there's so many services that are out there that you could offer, and specifically high ticket services. You don't really want to get into low ticket in general. You could sell events. I mean, I guess that could be a information slash service. I don't really know what you would classify that as actually. And so the last one, right? You have the physical, and we've already talked about the services. We've already talked about the software, and we've already talked about information products. So like think about what it is that you sell, and think about, and it's obviously physical, right? If you're listening to this, you're probably selling something physical. So is there something in information that you could sell? Is there something in software or services? And the reason that it's important to break these up is because each different type of product attracts a different type of buyer. And there's also different levels of buyers. So some buyers are only going to want the supplement or whatever product that you sell. Some people only want the high end, and they may not even they'll try the supplement, but what they really want is someone to just help them do it. Or they want to go like in, I don't know, in the weight loss industry, they want like the shot or whatever. I mean, there's so many different things. And the cool part about this is that you don't have to own these other things. You can just do strategic alliances with people and let's just say it's a service and you got 30% of the sale. And let's just say that service had a 75% contribution margin. All right. Well, then they get to pick up that extra kind of 45%, but you're still getting 30% of that, right? So you're still getting a lot of money, and it's on your end, since you're just getting a commission, right? It's 100% contribution margin for you. So adding these things with high contribution margin, especially in the physical products industry, is going to help increase that contribution margin. And as you know, if you listen to anything that I teach, when you increase contribution margin, that gives you typically the biggest leverage of any other lever that you can pull inside your entire business. So don't you think it's important to increase that? Yes, of course it is. All right. And if you go after these other things and you have your main product is whatever, 50%. And let's just say for argument's sake that you have 50%, which is your main product, and then you give them something which is 100% contribution margin, and you sell the same revenue, well, that would mean that you would increase your overall contribution margin from 50% to 75%. And if you if you basically do that, right, and get that 50% increase, that's going to be, geez, I don't know. Let's just say times five, a 250% increase in profit, right? So almost four, like what is that, 3.5 times your profit, right? By doing that. And of course, this is a theoretical example, but I'm just showing you what leverage you can use in that. So yeah, I mean, it's really, really important. In fact, if we go back to the example that I gave above, you would actually adding just $50 in lifetime value would actually double the profit of that person. Let me go back to my math here. I'm going to look at this. Okay, yeah, so basically going up in the lifetime value. I'm looking away here. I'm looking at my notes that I have. So we had a $250 1 year lifetime value, and if you just added that if you added $50 to that, you would double profit. Okay, because you would basically go to let's see, what would it be? Up to $300,000 net. So basically, the point is, all you did was add one thing, which added $50 to the LTV, and you doubled profit. All right. In the original example, it was increasing lifetime value by 30%. It increased to 90%. Right. It just, you have to do the math for your business and just see what it would be. Right. I'm just here to kind of show you what's possible. You have to do this math for your business because, of course, I'm not talking about your business right now. I'm talking about random businesses. All right. So what approach do you take when it comes to lifetime value, right? What I would say is you have to make sure that you're doing this based on your business model. All right. So look at what makes sense for what you sell. Bring it back to your customer. What did they buy in the first place? What's the problem that they're trying to solve? And once we solve that problem, what's the next bigger problem that they're going to have as a result of that first problem being solved? All right. So just for example, let's go to weight loss because that's something that most people understand. If your product helps them lose weight, well, what is a natural consequence or a natural problem that happens once you lose weight? Well, then you're going to need different clothes, right? Maybe you have apparel that you could sell them. You generally, once you get momentum, want to continue that momentum. So maybe you have a muscle building course. So you sell the first product on weight loss, and then once they lose the weight, then, oh wow, well now you're just skinny, and now you want to add a little bit of muscle to get some curves and some shapes back. So now you sell them a muscle building product or muscle building service or muscle building information or whatever it is, right? So think about what that is like when your product solves their initial problem. What other product does that create? What is the next congruent vacuum up to the next level of service? And generally, when I'm doing this, I'm trying to increase price. Okay, that's typically not in every case, but typically that's where my brain goes. Is if the first product is $50, well, we want the next product to be whatever 250 or 500, right? And then they buy the 500, and then the next level is 2,500 or 5,000, right? Generally in lockstep of somewhere in the range of like 3 to 10 times the price. But it really depends on what you're selling, because at the end of the day, regardless of the price, you have to make sure that the perceived value of whatever you're selling is significantly higher than the perceived risk, which includes price, right? So that's all I got for you for when it comes to lifetime value, when it comes to basically, increasing your profit per customer, increasing your overall profit without generating any new customers. So if this helped you, if you like this style of thinking, this level of thinking, definitely recommend you check out my book. It's called the Scalable Profit Model. You can get that at scaleadvisors.com/book. If you want to reach out to work with me, I actually do done for you lifetime value ascension campaigns that are completely risk free. I actually take all the risk. It's on a performance only basis. So if you want to reach out for that, and I'll just literally do all of this for you, I would love to chat with you. You have to be a million plus for that to apply. But if you're a million plus and that makes sense for you, then reach out. Otherwise, check out the book, scaleadvisors.com/book. And if you want to do none of those things and you just want to take the information and run with it, that is also 100% fine. And I hope that you do that. So, with all that said, my name is Jeremy Reeves. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one.